Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. Markets in the morning. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Welcome to Markets in the Morning. Today is Monday, September 11th, 2023, 9/11 date. Touch on that here a little while and here in just a minute, guys. Wild day over here in the cryptocurrency market as we get ready to start off the new week. This is Markets in the Morning, where we take a look at the price action at the cryptocurrency market, the stock market, metals, gold, the dollar, any type of news going on out there as we get ready to kick off our week, which if you're anything like me, probably woke up, looked at your phone and said, dear God, what is going on out there? As the crypto market gives us a nice little red day to start out this morning today, with Bitcoin sitting really still at about where it's at about 25,700, which we've been sitting really in this area since, back on August 18th. But of course, we've seen a lot of price action over here in the altcoin market as the Bitcoin, altcoin, the dominances are still just kind of waddling in here, still ranging as it's starting to kind of shift back up a little bit in here. We talked about this last week and really all the weeks prior to it. We'll touch on that here in a little while too. But of course, a lot of concern out there. We've seen like early signs of things breaking. Good news is stock market is opening up right now. The stock market opened up 1 minute ago. Let's go see what it's actually doing in here. Stock market is up 162 points to start the day. For the Dow Jones, it's up almost 0.5%. The NASDAQ is up almost 1%, up 138 points, and the S&P is up about 0.2%. It's up 29 points to start this morning. So we've got green action over here in the stock market. This is what we were looking for. We said last week as we were wrapping up the week to say, hey, look, expecting that the conclusion of this and to start seeing these things start to ramp up. We'll touch on all the things we have. We have like inflation data coming out later this week. Next week, of course, we have the Fed. We've got the whole rate hike stuff, 93% chance that we are paused. But of course, all eyes are over here on Bitcoin. Is there something going on in the cryptocurrency market independently of it right now? So we'll touch on a few different things going on pertaining to crypto today. Obviously, you can see altcoin market is red. Nothing huge, right? We see lots of 2%ers, lots of 1%ers. You got a couple of 4s. You got XRP in there as a 4. But most of them are pretty small percentages. It's not like what we saw on August 18th, where we saw 20s and 30s happening in there, and 15s and 20s and all that stuff. But of course, we've been down here so long, any downward moves start to add the excruciating pain to it. I had text messages right when I woke up, multiple messages. Oh no, crypto, which I haven't had at all really for the last couple of weeks, but for some reason today triggered it. And even with me today, I'm kind of like, dang, what happened here? So let's talk about like just the state of Bitcoin. I think that's kind of where we just really need to start in the first place, with where we're at right now. Because, every time we see moves, we're like, okay, is this an actual break that has happened here on crypto? Is something fundamentally breaking happening in here? We know the stock market's still moving up. We know that the overnight repo lending is still continuing to fall. Dominances look fine. But where does like something like legitimately break in this market? And so the things we can go back and look at is just keeping it, was it KISS? Keep it simple, stupid, right? If you just stick to higher highs and higher lows that happen in the market. Right now, currently, Bitcoin sits with a higher low after a higher high. That's where it is right now. Higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, continuing to march its way up. Let's go back and look at previous time periods, right? Let's go look at the recovery back in 2019. Higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. Suddenly, not higher low. Trouble brewing, a whole year, crossing the desert. Brutal year until C19 strikes, right? Come out of C19. Higher low, 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 higher low. Close, 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 higher low, continuing. Finally, there's your lower low, and that's where S hits the fan, right? Go back and look to 2015, 2016. What do we have? Higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. Never setting lower lows, right? Right now, we don't have those. So we don't sit there and say everything is broken apart. But you can see if we set a lower low, something fundamentally is different or technically different on the charts compared to what we do when we're typically in uptrends. There's typically going to be the hold of the lower low. Currently, right now, it still is holding. Reminds me a whole lot of what it was like back in here. And I do have something on it. We're actually going to look at, not to promote this coin in any way, Stellar Lumens. We're going to look at the chart. We're going to look at some underlying indicators. We're going to point to a couple of things going on in there. There are some altcoins that are showing like exceptional weakness out there in the market. And it's not all of them. I mean, a lot of them are moving down, but the ones that are like exceptionally weak are like Polkadot and like Atom. Those two in particular were the ones that I noticed this morning. But I did also look at like their market caps. And I believe their market caps are also sitting at their floor right now too. So those will be interesting ones to watch. Nothing's really as weak as those two in particular right now. But those are the ones that are just kind of like showing exceptional weakness compared to the rest of the market. You still have Bitcoin sitting up here with a higher low. You still have Ethereum sitting up much higher. XRP, of course, the big breakout after the SEC lawsuit, still sitting in that 47, 48 cent level, still holding up okay. But this is the main thing that I am watching for here on Bitcoin is if it sets a lower low. Even in recoveries through all of here, right? You have these types of things where this stuff happens. The market gets scared to death. I remember this one very clearly. Market got completely scared to death. Price action very similar. We ranged for a while. There was this big shoot up, and then it shoots right back down. This whole time period, market scared to death, thinking we're going back to 3K. Very similar to the 12K stuff that we see today, and that's very similar to what we have right here. But it would require that higher low to continue to be holding, which it still is. So things are okay currently, although we're all just beat up from being down here so long that these little moves right in here, they just don't feel good anymore at this point, right? And you go back in here and you think of how many people were YOLO trading every meme coin and on Uniswap and sending it to random contract addresses that popped up and willing to lose 30% of their money at once. Given enough time, you know, that novelty wears off, seeking safety, and then just 1 and 2 percentage points start to feel pretty painful. Either way, we start out the week with Bitcoin still holding. The fundamental change on the charts, which we just showed in every uptrend in the market, becomes the break of the lower low, right? So continuing higher lows, if a lower low gets set, that's where we start to see things can get pretty waffly in here. Otherwise, even in just retracements, which is still my thought process for Bitcoin, that's probably all we're going to get out of this is just a retracement. You still have the higher lows continuing to hold. And that happens in every scenario in here, that we continue the higher lows to continue marching on. So right now, we definitely still have it for Bitcoin. But if we do end up losing that, that's where things would start getting pretty sketchy. As of right now, it still continues to hold. Okay. Stock market. Excellent start to the day. Up 0.5% for the Dow, up 0.75% for the NASDAQ, up 0.2% for the S&P. Leaders of the day so far are going to be Tesla. You even have Coinbase somehow in the green this morning. Losers of the morning looks like the only one on this list would be Nvidia. But those you got Tesla, Meta, ARK, and Amazon sitting at the top of the list for the morning. One of the interesting things, I was laying in bed thinking about this morning as I was looking through all this, and I'm like, it is so interesting to see how Bitcoin is still holding these lows and how everybody's really cheering to get another investment product for Bitcoin, right? Everybody's wanting to get an ETF product for Bitcoin to come out. And I've said, you know, for me, I have zero vested interest in an ETF to come out because that carrot just gets dangled so much that I know that I'm not going to dangle it in front of you guys to think that it's something that is in any way coming anytime soon. But, you know, one of the interesting phenomenons has just been how well Grayscale, right? So Grayscale is its own product. The discount to NAV has been like 20% or so, at some point being over 50%. What would you rather buy? Would you rather buy something that is cheaper, right? If you're an institution, or are you going to, right, something that still has more room to grow? Or would you rather buy spot Bitcoin, right? And right now, the incentive is there to buy GBTC rather than to buy Bitcoin. And if you don't understand that, then why are you cheering for an ETF in the first place? But yeah, so right now, I'm curious what happens here with Grayscale's GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And as you can see, like, look where Bitcoin is right now. Spot Bitcoin is way down here. but the Bitcoin trust is still much higher. And so even buying this is actually a better value than buying Bitcoin because it's discounted based on compared to the spot price. So this window needing to kind of close out in here, and this is the complications of what we have happen by having these additional products on the market rather than just the spot price of Bitcoin. So I don't know. I don't really have much more to say than that, except I really thought about that tonight or this morning. I say tonight because I wake up way before the sun comes up, and how this has just been significantly outperforming Bitcoin in general. The Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, it's up 159% currently right now, whereas spot Bitcoin price is up 65%, and there's still more value in Grayscale. If there's going to be more continued upside in Bitcoin, there's still more value in buying Grayscale. So the incentive is there to go with GBTC rather than to go with spot. And I'm not saying to do that. I'm just explaining the discounts happening in here. So we'll see what happens when that gap closes out in there. But the complications of having additional products outside of just spot Bitcoin is that there's an incentive to chase the asset in a separate place rather than actually chasing the actual spot. As for XRP, still continuing along in here, still just waddling along, waiting to see, is Bitcoin going to break? If Bitcoin breaks into lower low, what do you think? Probably XRP is going to go with it. As of right now, though, it hasn't. Still continuing in this range. Nothing exciting to say. Hopefully we can see some type of recovery happening in here. Some of the things that we do talk about, just like in wave structures happening in here. What do we have happening? You see, let me give you a wave count. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where do we pause out at? We hold in here for some time. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully that's the final flush, right? What do we get? 6 and 7. Flush it for the final ending. Hopefully that's it. Of course, that's probably going to depend on Bitcoin holding. If Bitcoin goes to Goblin Town, guess what? So does XRP, historically at least. Not a laughing matter. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is where this is the largest asset in my portfolio. It's definitely something I don't want. That's probably more of a nervous laugh than a laughing at. But yeah, there you go. Still, nothing much here. As for Ethereum, so Ethereum still continuing to hold the lows that were set there on August 18th. So this is the third largest. My second largest holding is Bitcoin. My third largest is Ethereum. Still continuing to hold the lows from August 18th. Things we've been talking about since way back over here, since back in April. Even wrote newsletters on this, mindful of Wyckoff accumulation. The thing is still just continuing along. The big question is there going to be a spring phase that comes in to send this thing to Goblin Town? That would probably occur on a break of Bitcoin setting a new low, or what we're seeing happening still currently right now, the continuing of last point of support to just continue waddling along sideways. As of right now, still okay. Things that would probably start triggering alarms for me would merely be breaking below what happened on August 18th. Breaking below there, have we now put into effect the crashing structure for a spring happening in there? So for me, right now, there's not concerns. We would lose diagonal support, which I don't really pay attention to diagonal trend lines at all. But if we do start losing that support in there, I would start being concerned of there being a spring phase coming in here. Again, it's probably all going to be one big trade. It would be Bitcoin. It would be XRP. It'd be the whole market doing it all at once. But we don't have it happening yet, and you still have Bitcoin holding the lows currently right now. Again, if we lose those, if we lose the lows happening in here, unlikely to be pleasant. Hard to create any scenarios where we do go set new lows happening in here. The only way I could creatively come up with to say, hey, it would be okay to set like a new low in here. This is the only one, and I don't know if I don't really have much emphasis to put on here. We could do this right here, okay? And I'll show it to you, but this is the concerns with it. First of all, we don't have any examples of that being okay, just so we all know, right? We have no examples of that being okay where we go and lose this support. We didn't do that in 2018. You don't do that in 2019. You don't do that in 2015 and 16. You don't do that in 2018 and 2019. You don't do that in any uptrends, in any situations for Bitcoin in 2019, in 2020, 2021, nor do you do it in 2015, 16, or 17. So going and doing that and taking out the lows and removing the higher lows, there's no scenarios for us in the past where that's an okay thing to do. Now, let's show the only arguments I could make on it, right? And that would be one, if you were going to do diagonal trend line, there's diagonal trend, right? I'm not a trend line guy, but I'll give it to you there, right? There you go, diagonal trend. Two, looking at it from the perspective of we've just done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is somewhat of an ABC. A way to think about it would be like in this scenario right here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC, right? We take out this level, right? Take it out, invert that, see what that looks like from the opposite perspective, right? Being like that, right? That you get something like that, right? And so if we're looking at it from this perspective, you're looking at it like, get it? So that would be the only argument I have. Going way up here, no way. No way. Getting to like 21K or 22K, be like, oh, crud, no, that's not good. That's not good. I wouldn't be able to do anything for that. But a little dip there, you know, maybe you got that thing. Maybe you got your diagonal trend, but boy, it will have violated all rules that have happened in previous uptrends. All previous uptrends still maintained higher lows. If you take out that higher low, it violates all of them. So you can go with that if you want, but just knowing that it always is higher lows every single time. So that dates back to all of this stuff. So keep that in mind. But as of right now, the higher low is still maintaining itself. So not gonna panic just yet. But if we go taking that out, and then you start taking out the lows for Ethereum there at 1542, right? What does that mean? Like it's setting up the door to really go plunging back down to the lows. That the range is going to continue. This range that we've now been in for a year and a half, right? This has been a ranging context that we just can't leave. Bottom of range, top of range, bottom of range, top of range, middle of range, right? Like if we put like a fib here, where are we at? We're just above 50%. We're like dead in the middle of this range that we've now been in here for a year and a half. So everybody getting frustrated, of course, because you want to see a trend emerging. You're wanting to see it go one way. And what you're getting? You're getting bounce, 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 still in the same range over and over again until we can leave. Fortunately, this does resemble what accumulation schematics look like. Question is, are we doing spring? So far to me, it still looks like last point of support happening in here, but I think you would start to get a clear sign if you took out trend, if you took out the lower low that was set there at 1547, you'd probably get ugly, which would at the same time be a break at the lower low there for Bitcoin. So like one thing just to talk about for those who weren't here, and I had conducted a poll just a little while ago, maybe a month or two ago, how many people were here in 2018 through 2020, and it turns out that like 2/3 of people were not here during that time period. And to kind of understand what it was like in here is that it was the same stuff, right? So everybody who was not here during this moment, I think to reflect back on that everybody was a bear here, that we were going back to 3K. And you could probably go find this if you go look for my YouTube videos. And you think it's unusual for me to combat and be like, hey, I don't believe in 12K. I was doing the same thing here because everybody on Twitter, just like your 3Ks today, it was your, just like your 12Ks today, back here in September and October, it was your 3Ks. So we were going to 3K, we were going to 4K, and that we were about to do C19 for a second time from right in here. And let me show you this really fast. Dun, dun, dun. Right? Fair argument. It's like, here it comes, man. We're going back to 4K. And this was circulating all throughout Twitter. This was circulating on YouTube videos everywhere. This was the next thing that was coming. and we can like replay it. Put yourself right there, right? So this is kind of what was going on in people's minds that, hey, we just did this like retracement thing in here. Here we are. We've come up this far. Get ready, guys. We're going for C19 for a second time. And what you wouldn't imagine is that for sentiment to be at this state and for the market to believe that we're going to do let's measure it. The market believed we were going to do a 58% plunge, right? What does the market think we're going to do right now? Let's do 58%. Please tell me that takes us to 12K. That would be amazing. No, not quite. Close, man. Close. 53%, right? The market thinks we're going to do a 52% plunge from right here, right? It was the same thing. And you wouldn't have imagined that it was only 4 months later we're bouncing in the 50Ks, right? So it all happened so fast on how quick sentiment shifted and how quick sentiment changed. And I'm not saying we're about to start some massive bull run for Bitcoin. Just that, you know, we get like this. We have price behavior kind of similar to this, where we range in this area like this. You break out and then you liquidate back to the lows, and then everybody's a barrel at the same time. Seen it before. The only thing that really sets that into play, where you kind of get me on that team of OS, is if we set a new low. And I just showed that to you on all of these. You get continuously higher lows. In the event that a new low gets set, that's where things start to get ugly. But as long as we're maintaining higher lows, it's all well. And currently we're still doing that. I'll change my thoughts on that very quickly. Should we get one? But we don't have one currently right now. And when we did have this last time, everybody did scream the sky was falling. And only a couple months later, it was in all-time highs. I don't think we're going to all-time highs. But it was only just for this example to let you know how brutal it was. And it's unfortunate when you try to tell people this is what it was like, and only two-thirds of people weren't here. The only thing I can say is kind of, if you think my behavior of lashing out at the 12K discussions, it's not unusual for me to be like that, especially if you go back in here into September and into October of 2020, you'll see me being like, here's why 4K is never going to happen. And then we rallied on from there. But either way, all right, got to maintain those lows happening in there for the old Bitcoin. Otherwise, Dow off to a good start. Looks like we're kind of getting a little bit more mixed as the day's open. And there goes Coinbase. Now Coinbase has slipped into last. I was going to say it's kind of odd for it to be up with crypto so red today. There you go. Now it's that we're settling in a little bit. Dow's up 123 points. S&P's up 18 points. Nasdaq's up 83. So a little bit over 0.5% for the Nasdaq, a little over 1/3% for the Dow, and over 0.4% for the S&P. We haven't looked at the dollar. We haven't looked at gold and silver yet. We'll get there in just a minute. All right. Well, why not right now? Here's the dollar. The dollar sitting at 104.64. So last week getting as high as 105.15, 105.16. Created maybe 2 videos that had to do with the dollar. I don't know. At least one very in-depth video that had to do with the dollar. And then, of course, we talked about it in Markets in the Morning. I still don't know if that's going to be the marking of this. This thing still could come up higher. But there you go. Start the week out. Big plunge happening in there for the dollar. Not fully convinced that's going to be it yet. Again, these are processes. Reversal processes take a long time, just like we talked about last week. Even if this is the reverse, I mean, these things can just, be long processes happening in here until finally they swoop back up. But the momentum of this should be slowing down. Stop before 106, please. Looking at gold. So gold has a little bit of an update today, up 7.45 this morning. You got silver up as well. Silver is up 12.5 cents, back above 23 after a dip below 23 last week. But yeah, that likely with that dollar falling, it looks like you have a lot of commodities going up this morning. Even Grayscale, look at that. Grayscale is in the green today, guys. Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. So you really want those other investment products? GBTC is somehow green. All right, Fed. 93% chance of a pause happening. Overnight repos dipped again last Friday, now down to 1.525 trillion happening in there. Let's go ahead. We'll talk about Bitcoin dominances, and then we'll move on, because obviously when you see the altcoin market fall and you see Bitcoin down less, what are you going to see? You're going to see a shift up happening here in the dominances. This is to be expected. I actually do expect that we'll see the Bitcoin dominance get up closer to 50.75% before it really tames itself in here. Hopefully that's just Bitcoin shifting back up quickly, kind of a rubber band effect happening in Bitcoin, and then there you go. Then the drift continues all over again. We've talked a lot about this. I think that we have just had the safety trade come to a completion when it comes to Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, and USDC. As you can see, we've had this on here for a couple of weeks, even these little squiggly lines in here. That's because that's what typically happens. Even though we pull back, we still hang out in this zone for a while. You can even kind of see that over here. The expectation is not that this thing is actually ready to go into a plow, like we talked about last week, or the week prior. The thing that I'm looking for is more of like a pullback in here, maybe a fall of about 6 or 7% happening there in the dominance. And then likely, if there is excitement that happens in this market in a moment like this, where it shifts back to near the highs again, this is actually an exciting time period where you see more of an ABC slingshot before then the real chaos and excitement actually comes to this market. So I don't think we're there to the exciting chaos of the market just yet. I think we also need that in macro conditions in the market, with stock market as well. But I still fully believe we've seen the top out of the Bitcoin dominance. I totally believe we've seen the top out of the safety index, right? Bitcoin dominance plus Ethereum dominance plus USDT plus USDC. But the thing is, we're likely still stuck in this area for some time until another shift down happens. And you can see how those things do occur and how long we can be in here. So I still think we're in here, but I'm not surprised to see the dominance shift. Of course, what would you have rather seen? What would I have rather seen? I'd rather have seen Bitcoin shoot up rather than Bitcoin stay still and the altcoins move down. But either way, that's what we're waiting on still, until another drift lower can happen. And I do think we're working on it. Yeah. So, and I still think that the likelihood, just wave counts tell you this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They tell you we go back to like 50. So there's still maybe another % to get there in the dominance. But still, I believe that's the peak of it. All right. Dollar down a little bit more. All right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about, we're just going to talk about this because you see some coins that have done this and you see some coins that haven't done this. I'm not advocating for stellar lumens. I just want to talk about like price behavior, right? And how long we've been in here. We're going to talk about some underlying indicators that have happened in here to kind of put into reference on how long we've been in this thing with the crypto market. Everybody's reaching their breaking point because of how long we've been in here, right? How long we're drawdown, which this drawdown that we've had here in crypto wasn't as bad as what we had in 2018. 2018 was way worse. But with how long we've been in here, of course, there's time-based pain that ends up happening in here. But I want to show you a couple of things. We're just going to look at like relative strength index, and we're going to look at price levels of where something like stellar lumens has pulled back. And you can kind of look through stuff and see like, oh, some stuff hasn't pulled back that far, like Cosmos hasn't pulled back that far, or what other ones? I was looking at them this morning. It was like 2 or 3. I don't know. Not important. Nothing I have significant holdings in. But like to give you an example on like, let's look at like underlying indicators. So first of all, we know from a time perspective, how long have we been in this thing? We've been in it a long time, right? We've been in it an equivalent amount of time as if we've gone past the bottom in 2019. That's how long you've been in this thing. And all that points to the same stuff we're talking about in Bitcoin, where you see the peaks coming in there in April and May of 2021 rather than in November. But would we be seeing like a pullback happening right here and right now? So one thing we're going to do is like, if we look at like how far we did pull back in here, back in 2020, right? So 2018 through 2020, you can kind of see where we pulled back to, right? It's like we had fallen, gotten stuck below a level, capitulated, broke above, back tested that level, and then went off into the bull run of 2017, right? The second bull run of 2017. And we can see that's where the bottom of the market came in down in here. Now we can look over here in 2018 through 2020, and we can see like this is kind of the area that we're stuck underneath, right? And we capitulate, we bounce out, right? We back test back into that level once again, just as we did over here, back test into it, off and away we go, back test it, off and away we go. And then we look over here and see where do we pull back to in here. So where we pull back to over here, similar to like we did back over here. And so we know we've been in this, let me take all this off. We know we've been in this thing like an equivalent amount of time. Are we exhibiting same like technical behaviors happening in here on the charts too? And so one of the things, like you look through the 2018 through 2020 bear market for like stellar lumens, right? And you can see how it's stuck underneath, what is this, 53, right? Stuck underneath 53 on the weekly RSI for years, right? Until finally it gets a very clear breakout that happens in here, right? And then pulls back. And that just so happens to be the levels that we're talking about in here where it breaks out and pulls back to. Similar to how we had back in here, right? The breakout and the pullback in here. But it has a big pullback that happens in here. Let's take a look at percentage-wise on how big this thing is. %, right? Pretty decent sized pullback. Let's look how big this one is currently right now. 43. Interesting. But you look at the technicals of it too, right? And so like, what do? We pull back to the same spot. We get stuck under this range for some time. You pull back here. You're back on top of it again. Has it back tested it? Maybe. But look, after being stuck under for years, right? Peak of the market comes in. You get stuck for years. What was the signature marking of it getting out and going, right? The signature marking was the full-blown breakout on the weekly RSI, right? Where are we at now? We've gotten the full-blown breakout on the weekly RSI. It's still continuing to hold. If you all remember, this is the area we were hoping to see XRP continue to hold at. What did XRP do? It said, no, thank you. But Stellar Lumens has continued to hold that level. And it's very similar behavior. So we know the pullback has pulled back equivalently to like this pullback did back in 2018 through 2020. We know that the relative strength index was stuck underneath the level of 53 going on the entire time. Here we are stuck underneath it the entire time until finally we get a break of it. The break of it takes us into a new trading range. This is after pulling back to an equivalent level, which was the level that held down through capitulation, and here we are getting that breakout. So we see signs in here, and I know it's easy to like get stuck in the mindset of Doom Town. We're going to Doom right here, right now, and well, if things break, then we'll address that at the time. But we have stuff in here that is still acting like, turning around. If you were to just use this, right, you'd be sitting there saying, this is exhibiting signs of a market that is turning around. And I wanted to point that out there, that you see these, right? It's not just, you have time-based that you've been in here. You have indicator-based happening in here. You've pulled down to equivalent levels as you have in past periods. I'm just not convinced of it yet. I'm just not convinced that the sky is falling just yet. But as I've mentioned, I showed you all the things that would start to make me believe that it was. But I just don't see it just yet. And it's hard for me when I look at things like this and say, this is what our escapes looked like, right? It was normal. You pulled out, you pull back 45%, pull back 45% onto the top of the trading range after back testing the previous trading range breakout, which is what we have. Yeah, so I don't know. I thought I would just show that to you because it's easy to get into the doom thought of, oh no, it's going to break. And if it does, watch out. But it hasn't yet. And for that, I figure we can look at a couple of things that are similar to what happens during periods like that. So, all right, that's what we've touched on. We've touched on Bitcoin. We've touched on altcoins. We've touched on Bitcoin dominance. We've touched on the stock market, which looks like stock market's pulling back a little bit now that the day has got going. Everything is still in the green. The Nasdaq's still up 2/3%. S&P is up 1/3%. Dow up almost a quarter, about 0.19% happening here. Tesla's still the leader. I don't know what's going on with Tesla today. Loser of the day. What do you think? Coinbase, with everything going on in crypto. Touched on metals, dollar. The only thing we touched on, let me just look at this. So I know we have economic data coming out this week, so everything is going to kind of be leading up to what's coming next week, guys. It's been almost 2 months since we've had a Fed meeting. When was the last one? Historical. I don't know. Prior hikes. Come on. Okay, whatever. July 26th, right? So it's been 2 months. It'll be 2 months since we've had a Fed meeting. This is going to be the talk of the town on the market for the next week. It's going to be inflation data coming out this week, which I think it's pretty clear. Inflation is chilled, right? So I think what everybody wants to see is they want to see prices come down, but that's actually deflation, right? So, obviously we saw a lot of price rising happening for the last 2 years. Those prices are still elevated. Sorry, I'm over here trying to pull up an economic calendar at the same time while I'm talking to you. Okay. But I think we're still going to stay in those threes for a little while. As we saw throughout the whole year, we know that the CPI had fallen from what was it get as high as 9%, and it was falling all the way down to like 3.1, 3.2, then last month up to 3.3 or 3.4. It's expected to be 3.5 or 3.6 when we get to reading this Wednesday. Then next Wednesday is when we end up having the Fed decision. So everything historically is okay with Fed pauses. Of course, the thing you wouldn't want to see would be Federal Reserve interest rate cuts. That's typically the mark of doom goblin down. So, all right. Sorry, I was going to try to get the economic calendar up, but I'm having a hard time right now. All right. That's it, guys. So that covers all of it. What are we at? 36 minutes of rambling. There we go. All right. Let's jump on in. But I think that really kind of covered the day, how we're starting. XRP spring phase. Sure hope so. Just don't want to see Bitcoin go set new lows. I always say, it's the most unsexily thing for the XRP community to hear. How tied it is. Well, dumping a bit, yeah. But the new low, that's the one where it's like, okay. Oscar Hernandez, let's hit the like to bring XRP back to 69 cents. Alpha Beta Soup, I'm dumping right now. Nick Berry, what does that mean? Can you go over Ford again? The contract ends Thursday night. UAW is asking for a ton. I don't know what to go differently. In my opinion, I haven't looked at it since whoever asked me last week. So whatever my thoughts are, they're identical as what they were last week. Oscar Hernandez, the super chat. Thank you so much, brother. George Alexanderopoulos. Good morning, brother. Can you double check my TA on the 1 hour XRP triangle? We're just doing diagonal trend lines on the 1 hour time frame. I don't know, man. We're going to do on the 1 hour. So what you're doing here? Yeah, so if you have waves of equal length, I think it's fair. It's fair. Let's look here. Let's see what's happening right here. Right, this could be crashing structure in here, right? So like if you're in crashing structure, what do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then rolls back up to 4, then there's one more. I'm not gonna guess just yet when we're in the thick of it. Made those mistakes before, and you're trying to guess for the knife stops. I'm going to let it breathe first. Sandal says, are you still adding new money into your portfolio? I haven't added it yet. I haven't brought new money in since the beginning of the year. Yeah, no, not yet. I'm going to let Bitcoin breathe for a minute. And for me, there's really, I mean, you can look at all different kinds of coins and everything like that. I guess just in the state of crypto, with the economy and everything like that, like how many coins are there out there that like actually interest me, right? There's at some point also there's like this my technological ability to understand a lot of this. A lot of it is over my head, right? Like some of this technology stuff is complicated, man. So for me, like which ones like make sense that I see used and make me excited and have strong communities, and it's XRP, and of course the XRP people are gonna hate to hear it. It's Ethereum too. Otherwise, everything else is kind of like, yeah, maybe. I think Cardano's used a lot. That one I'm still kind of comfortable in holding, even like not looking the strongest, but like I know it's used, total value locked, and you can see, NFTs built on that. There's activity on that chain. There's a lot of activity, which for XRP, NFT activity is just almost zero, guys. It is like non-existent. Yeah, we'll talk this for another day. But no, if I added more money into the market, it would be on Ethereum lower if I did it. Otherwise, I'm just kind of sitting still. Daniel Trejo, new member. Welcome, brother. Pat Collis Butler, new member. Thank you. And Pat. Oh, Pat. No. Pat Collis. I'm just reading that. Pat's Butler gifted 1 BCB membership. Thank you, brother. All right, there we go. Bitcoin, are you going to do it? We're getting to move. We'll hang out here until we hit 1 hour. So I know there were a lot of people out there interested in 25.2. That was a number that was called a lot on Twitter. We'll see if that one holds. It's over. $24.7 is what Jerg says. 24.9. Shroom says, what do you think about the 19 Bitcoin transaction fee? I don't even know how that's possible. How someone could do that. Alpha Beta Soup. It's so over that we are now back. Texas Takeover. I feel nothing. Andy Philpott with 5 memberships, brother. Thank you. Crypto Lingua. Only 500 more to go before we hit 24.8. Brittany says it's going straight to 12K. If it goes straight to 12K, I think it's going straight to 8. That's my thoughts. Eric Martin says, emotional drugs, here we come. K12 says, I am scared. K12, were you buying meme coins? So we'll go until we hit an hour. So we got about 16 more minutes. The thing is, we could sit here for forever waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't. But we'll go at least 16 more minutes to see if we get it. What is the low that should hold? Okay, so we'll look at this, right? And I guess we could technically look at market cap too. Let's look at market cap. We know the market cap has been the reactionary thing, right? Let's go to Bitcoin market cap. Okay. So based on time and the range we're supposed to be in, is that we're in the appropriate range. This is going to be a little delayed, right? I mean, we're technically supposed to maintain higher lows. You'd want to see 24. This is Bitstamp though. So Bitstamp is 24,758. Coinbase is 24,748. So just the maintaining of higher lows, right? As we do in all of Bitcoin's uptrends, the daily higher lows maintaining, that's what you would want to hold, right? That is what you do. You continue the higher lows all the way. Never stops. Even if it scares the daylights out of you and gets really close to it, still they maintain the higher lows. That's what happens in all of them. They just keep, you can just look at them as close as you want. Then it stops. Right? This would be similar to our current range, right? Where are we? Right? Right? Maintain the higher low. If you lose the higher low, imagine the structure you have for Bitcoin and how long you've been in here and how difficult you are of a situation you're entering now. All the things we've talked about with Ethereum, the whole setup, if it rolled back up here, even for Ethereum, like the weakest scenario you have for Bitcoin, where it like rolls over and goes to 3K, you still should be seeing like 37K for Bitcoin, even in that scenario, which is kind of like a 702 retracement of even just that one fall, getting you about to 38, 37. That's like your super weak scenario. Is GBTC playing a role in that? We'll find out one day. But maintaining the higher lows, right? So that's where we're at. Imagine if you don't, though. You've now deviated. There's lots of references of this back to 2019. I've done everything I possibly humanly can to say how different these two are. And that, which is why we knew the top was coming in back in 2021, because we understood what this was. This is not the same. And you could see here, even just this retracement, look how low you are, right? Let's go look at this retracement in here. It's like being right here, right? Is it like even being that high? It's like barely getting above, right? It's like getting like right here. But an equivalent move would, of course, get you what? It'd get you up closer to $48,000, $49,000 if we were going to go in for a real retracement or something like that. But, it is very similar to what occurred in here, right? On how it struggled at these retracements. So you notice it gets above the 236. It really has to work that out for a long time before finally getting out. which is similar to what we're at. But in none of those circumstances do we go set new lower lows. If you set new lower lows, you technically have a trend change. So every trend upwards is the higher lows. Go set a new lower low. Good luck, man. If you're cheering for 12K, let's talk about one thing too. We can do one thing too. Come on, have it on here. Have the halvings marked on here. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. All right. At every halving, right? This halving, you're up near the 237, right? Or 237, what the heck? 382. What am I talking about? This one, 50%. This one, 382. By the time you get to the halving, right? So I'm so good with my language. There's a word I want to use, right? So they're saying 12K. They say we can make it line. We'll make it like line up here. That's given like this is like bull, like okay, just come up with a cleaner word. It's like fantasy, right? So it's the bull fantasy that we go to here and then here, right? Like, hey, there's going to be this epic buying opportunity, but then when the halving gets here, we're going to be right here. Like over the course of the next 7 months, it's like long term, here's this epic bullish scenario, but you're going to get the epic buy of 12K and then you're going to quadruple your money quickly. There's no basis to do that, right? And the only time you ever have like a sharp drawdown, remember this too, the sharp drawdown, what is it also in correlation with? It's in correlation with broader markets, right? Insanity in the stock market at the same time, full-blown liquidation in the stock market. It was like a 40% fall of epicness in the Dow. Like you're having the breakers hit, right? To stop the stock market each day because it was falling 7%. You had chaos in stock markets at the exact same time. And not only that, we had done this huge retrace, right? So you had gone way up here first and then pulled all the way back. This scenario here, we don't have any references of that ever occurring, where this much time elapses, you get this close to the halving, and then a new low gets set. There's no new low scenario within 7 months of the halving for the 4-year block reward people. This is a new theory, new idea that has been fantasized here of what would happen, based on no historical norm at all. So if this thing rolls over and we have like a trend change, it would start to get pretty concerning. Not for 12K, for something different. Something different that we've been talking about for almost 2 years. Yeah, Mr. Q. Dow is plus 125. Green stock market, but cryptocurrency crush, definitely. It's something, huh? How is that? We even had GBTC green this morning. But yeah, you got the Dow up 126 points, up 1/3%. The S&P up over 1/3%. And then NQ1. All right, Jeff. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you guys. Hold on, let me go in order. David C. Meta's chart. What's going on with it? Meta. Send retracements. Is Meta going to pull a NVIDIA? That would be my thing to wonder. I'm not in Meta. Me personally, it's totally against any of my strategies ever. to go after something in this situation. You did see NVIDIA work its way back up. And then just explode through them all. Wait, this is Netflix. Netflix is not. What am I doing? Where are you, NVIDIA? Right. But right now with Meta, where are you at? You're at all the retracements, right? Any Ski Rich says any lows that you want to hold for Ethereum. We actually covered that. You'd want it. One, you have diagonal trend, which I'm not a huge fan of, but two, you've got that low right there. I'd want to see that low probably hold. The big question is, of course, are you going into, which we've talked about for months on end, April when we hit this, right? Watch out. Now, do we go into spring or do we go into the last point of support? So far for all these months, it's just been dragging out of last point of support. But should we go take out trend? Should we take out a new low? And should Bitcoin break? I think that's the big one too. Should Bitcoin break? Well, then I think it shows us, hey, we might be going into spring phase now after dragging on and having a creek for forever. But we watched what XRP did too, right? What did XRP do? It just slammed. Where are you? It just hummed along, right? Hummed along and then broke out. Well, we see the same for ETH, right? Obviously, the thing to watch for in this market, if you're in any of these altcoins or if you're watching in Bitcoin, what is the same repetitive thing that we keep seeing happening everywhere? Okay? And I think we've seen it now like 5 or 6 times, is to pay attention to this area right here, which is about a retracement level, right? So based on prior to the Luna collapse, these retracement levels have been stopping points on lots of assets so far, whether it's Stellar Lumens, whether it's Bitcoin Cash, Matic, right? All of them, they seem to all be struggling back at these retracement levels of Luna collapse. So any big moves that end up happening, that seems to be the point of struggle bus for everything. And that would be my thoughts too with Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin does pull its way out of here somehow, that would be the area to watch. Because that has been where the struggling has been happening everywhere in this market. And what you look, so there you go. Right, there's your struggle. It's 38.5 to 41. Things we've talked about with like Ethereum, which we have lost because I closed it out. Ethereum, the thing no Bitcoiner wants to hear, no four-year cycler wants to hear, is that there's a very real reality of this happening for Bitcoin. That, this is like your Luna collapse in here, right? And so here's how Ethereum responds to that, right? Ethereum goes back into the retracement levels here, right? And then Doom Goblin Town. So be mindful so that's why it's crazy to see, even if Bitcoin does roll over from here and sets a new low from here, how bizarrely weak Bitcoin would even be for itself. But still holding today. Let's see how volumes are looking. One thing I noticed last night is every time it came down, there was the big buy wicks that were happening here on the 5-minute. Not yet. Not yet. Okay, Jeff. Let me pull up that chart. I'm not familiar with that. Let me pull it up on CoinMarketCap. If it's not in the top 100, we're not going to cover it, brother. I might be dummy. It might be bigger than I even know. No. I can't bring that up, dude. It's not even in the top 5. It's ranked number 2,000. Sorry, man. I get people trying to push low cap altcoins on the channel all the time, man. I can't do it, bro. I appreciate the support, though. I love BCB for doing this. Seriously, what do you mean? All right, what are we at? We are at an hour. Hey, guys, wait, is this where we go crazy? Green! Wick 58. For using discretion, my guy. Oh, okay, for having ethics. I got you. Thanks, bro. Silver, you said XLM. We actually went through that. So if you go back and rewatch this thing, you'll see that we do actually cover it. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to put together a video, hopefully get it out by this afternoon, where we are going to talk more about things like that with Stellar and try to locate more things like that throughout the market. As long as Bitcoin's still holding these levels, it's really the only thing we can do. Should we go getting into it? I mean, we could sit here and talk about it all day. Is this higher lows continuing in here? And that's the formula requirement all the time until we get one, until we lose one. Once we lose one, then then we have to start figuring out, all right, trend change on Bitcoin. But until then, that's it. So I think I'll put together something with Stellar, but it's more for other altcoins too. Maybe we can find similarities with that and other stuff that maybe is weaker than that, or maybe stuff that is stronger than that. So, all right, there we go. We've hit an hour, guys. I'll still be around. I'm on my computer. It's Monday. It's not like I'm going anywhere. I'll check in with you guys soon. We're still holding the lows, and we'll keep an eye on it throughout the day. All right, I think I got everything, guys. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Of course, you can follow me over here on Twitter at BCBacker. It's my only social media that I do use, or x.com. Of course, you can check out bcbacker.com for 40 more videos of content from me, educational content. It's over 11 hours long, right there on bcbacker.com. Otherwise, guys, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Wild day. We'll see if we can get some recovery like the stock market is starting its week. Stock market gets to be green. Why can't we? We'll keep an eye on it. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this live stream. Please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Oscar Hernandez coming in at the end. Thank you, brother. Have a good one, everybody.